Princess Leora stood on the grand balcony of the Zalarian palace, her regal attire glistening under the twin suns. Below her, thousands of citizens had gathered, their faces a mix of hope and fear. The rival factions' threat loomed large, and today, she had a bold announcement to make. "My people!" Leora's voice rang out, clear and commanding. "In these uncertain times, unity is our greatest strength. It is with this in mind that I introduce my fiancé, Jack, who has come from a distant world to stand with us." The crowd murmured in shock. Jack, a tall human with a rugged demeanor, stepped forward. His piercing blue eyes scanned the assembly, assessing the reactions. Whispers and gasps spread through the court, the air thick with disbelief and curiosity. Leora continued, "Jack's presence here signifies a powerful alliance. Together, we will face our enemies and secure our future." In the opulent private chambers, Leora and Jack confronted the gravity of their ruse. "You sure this will work?" Jack asked, his tone skeptical yet respectful. "It has to," Leora replied, her voice laced with determination. "Our survival depends on it. And you, Jack, must play your part convincingly." Jack nodded, understanding the stakes. His past, shrouded in secrecy, had equipped him with the skills needed for such a dangerous charade. As they discussed their strategy, a shadow flickered outside the window. Without warning, an arrow whizzed through the air, aimed directly at Leora. Jack's reflexes were swift. He lunged, pulling her to safety just in time. The arrow embedded itself in the ornate wall behind them. "We have traitors among us," Jack growled, scanning the room for further threats. Leora's face paled but quickly steeled with resolve. "We must act fast. Our enemies are closer than we thought." The palace guards rushed in, securing the area. Amidst the chaos, Leora's trusted advisor, Elara, arrived. "Princess, are you all right?" she asked, her eyes darting between Leora and Jack. "Thanks to Jack, I am," Leora replied. "But we need to uncover who is behind this." Jack's mind raced as he pieced together the clues. "We start with those who had access to the balcony plans," he suggested. "Someone knew our exact location." As they delved into their investigation, the court's intricate politics unraveled before them. They identified suspicious behavior among high-ranking officials, each with potential motives. At a grand diplomatic event that evening, Leora and Jack maintained their charade. The hall was a kaleidoscope of alien dignitaries, the atmosphere tense with underlying distrust. Jack's keen eyes never stopped scanning for danger. During the event, they overheard a hushed conversation between two officials, revealing a possible lead. The tension in the air was palpable, and Jack's instincts told him they were onto something significant. In a secluded corner, Leora and Jack discussed their next move. "We need to be careful," Leora warned. "One wrong step and our plan could unravel." "Agreed," Jack said, his gaze intense. "But we can't let fear paralyze us. We act decisively." As the night progressed, they managed to corner one of the officials, whose nervous demeanor betrayed him. Under the pressure of their interrogation, he revealed part of the conspiracy, implicating a high-ranking court member. The revelation heightened the stakes, but it also solidified the burgeoning trust between Leora and Jack. As they prepared for the next phase of their plan, a silent understanding passed between them. This alliance, forged in necessity, was becoming something more profound. With newfound resolve, they stepped back into the fray, ready to confront the enemies within and safeguard the future of the Zalarian Empire. The challenge ahead was daunting, but together, they felt an undeniable strength. Princess Leora stood over the fallen traitor, her heart pounding with a mix of triumph and dread. Jack's voice cut through the chaos. "We need to move fast. He won't be the only one." The dramatic revelation from the previous night had left the palace in turmoil. Leora and Jack now faced a critical juncture: root out the conspiracy or face annihilation from within. As dawn broke, Leora convened an emergency council meeting. The grand chamber buzzed with tension. High-ranking officials and trusted advisors filled the room, their expressions a mixture of concern and suspicion. Jack, ever vigilant, scanned each face for signs of deceit. "Leora," Elara began, her voice steady but urgent. "We need to act on the information we've gathered. The safety of our people depends on it." "Agreed," Leora replied. "We must identify and neutralize the remaining conspirators before they strike again." "Jack, what's our next move?" Jack stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "We need to trace the traitors' communications. There's a network we're missing. It's our only chance to uncover the full extent of this conspiracy." Alara interjected. "I have a team ready to analyze the data immediately." "Good," Leora nodded. "Jack and I will continue our public duties to maintain the facade. We can't afford to show weakness." The council dispersed, and Leora and Jack prepared for the day's diplomatic engagements. The palace, usually a beacon of serenity, now felt like a den of vipers. As they moved through the corridors, Leora turned to Jack. "Do you think we can really trust anyone here?" Jack's expression hardened. "Trust is earned, not given. We'll know soon enough who our true allies are." Their first event of the day was a luncheon with influential nobles. The dining hall was a masterpiece of opulence, with shimmering chandeliers and ornate tapestries. Leora and Jack maintained their roles flawlessly, engaging in strategic conversations and deflecting probing questions about the recent unrest. During the meal, Leora noticed a subtle exchange of glances between two officials seated at the far end. She discreetly signaled Jack, who nodded imperceptibly. As the luncheon drew to a close, Jack approached the two officials, his demeanor casual but his eyes sharp. "Quite the event, isn't it?" he remarked. "But I can't help but feel there's more beneath the surface." The officials, caught off guard, stammered in response. Jack's keen observation skills picked up on their unease. He leaned in slightly. "You know, transparency is the key to trust in these troubled times." One of the officials, a man named Varian, finally spoke. "Of course, transparency. But you know, in politics, nothing is ever quite as it seems." Jack smiled, a hint of steel in his eyes. "True. But secrets have a way of surfacing, especially when they're buried in shallow graves." As the officials hurriedly excused themselves, Jack returned to Leora. "They're hiding something. We need to follow up on Varian." The day continued with a series of public appearances, each one a carefully choreographed act of unity and strength. Behind the scenes, Alara's team worked tirelessly to decrypt the traitors' communications. By nightfall, they had a breakthrough. Alara rushed to Leora and Jack's quarters, her face alight with urgency. "We've found something. Varian has been in contact with the rival faction. He's orchestrating a meeting tonight at the old observatory." Leora's eyes narrowed with determination. "We need to be there." Jack agreed. "This is our chance to expose the conspiracy and turn the tide in our favor." Under the cover of darkness, they made their way to the observatory. The ancient structure loomed ahead, its silhouette stark against the night sky. They moved with stealth and precision, every sense heightened. As they approached, they overheard hushed voices. Peering through a crack in the wall, they saw Varian speaking with a shadowy figure. The conversation confirmed their worst fears. The conspiracy was larger than they'd imagined. Leora and Jack exchanged a look of grim resolve. This was it. The moment of truth. They readied themselves to confront the traitors and bring the conspiracy crashing down. The stakes had never been higher, and their unity was their greatest weapon. With a deep breath, they stepped into the light, ready to face their enemies head-on. The observatory's ancient doors creaked open, revealing Varian and his accomplice mid-conversation. Leora and Jack burst into the room, weapons drawn. "Step away from him!" Leora commanded, her voice echoing through the dimly lit space. Varian's eyes widened in shock. "Princess, what are you doing here?" "Uncovering the truth," Jack replied coldly. "We know everything." The shadowy figure next to Varian stepped forward, revealing himself as a high-ranking officer from the rival faction. "This is a mistake, Princess," he sneered. "You're outnumbered and outmatched." Leora's grip tightened on her weapon. "We'll see about that." In a sudden flurry of movement, the room erupted into chaos. Jack and Leora fought with precision, their movements synchronized from their growing partnership. Blasts of energy and the clash of metal filled the air as they faced off against Varian's men. Jack's combat skills were unparalleled. He disarmed one opponent with a swift kick, his movements fluid and deadly. Leora, driven by her resolve, struck down another with a precise shot, her eyes never leaving Varian. Varian, realizing the tide was turning against him, tried to flee. Jack intercepted him, pinning him against the wall. "You're not going anywhere," Jack growled. Varian struggled, but Jack's grip was unyielding. "You don't understand," Varian gasped. "The rival faction promised peace, but they have other plans. They want to destroy the Zalarian Empire." Leora's heart pounded. "And you betrayed us for that? For lies and deceit?" Varian's eyes filled with regret. "I thought I was saving us. I was wrong." The shadowy officer, realizing Varian's confession had doomed him, made a desperate move. He lunged at Leora, a hidden blade glinting in his hand. Jack acted instinctively, pushing Leora aside and taking the blow meant for her. Pain seared through Jack's side, but he didn't falter. With a final surge of strength, he disarmed the officer and knocked him unconscious. Leora rushed to Jack's side, her eyes wide with concern. "Jack, you're hurt," she said, her voice trembling. "It's just a scratch," Jack replied through gritted teeth, trying to mask the pain. "We need to secure Varian and get this information to the council." With Varian and the officer bound and subdued, they made their way back to the palace. The journey was tense, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on them. Leora's mind raced with the implications of Varian's betrayal and the rival faction's true intentions. Back at the palace, they presented their findings to the council. The room was silent as Varian confessed his treachery and revealed the rival faction's plans. The council members exchanged worried glances, the severity of the threat sinking in. Elara stepped forward. "We must act quickly. The rival faction is likely preparing for an all-out assault." Leora nodded, her resolve hardening. "We will not be caught off guard. Jack and I will lead a strike force to intercept them before they reach our borders." Jack, despite his injury, stood tall beside her. "We've come this far. We can't back down now." The council erupted into action, preparations for the impending battle underway. Leora and Jack shared a brief moment of quiet amidst the chaos. "Thank you," Leora said softly. "For everything." Jack met her gaze, a faint smile on his lips. "We're in this together. Until the end." As the final preparations were made, the tension in the air was palpable. The fate of the Zalarian Empire rested on their shoulders, but they were ready to face whatever came next. United, they stood stronger than ever, ready to confront their enemies and protect their people. The battle commenced at dawn. The rival faction's fleet, a dark mass on the horizon, moved with relentless precision toward the Zalarian borders. Princess Leora stood at the helm of her flagship, her eyes fixed on the advancing threat. The tension was electric, the air thick with anticipation. "All units, prepare for engagement," Leora commanded, her voice steady. Beside her, Jack, despite his injury, prepared his tactical equipment, his focus unwavering. "Remember," Jack said, turning to the crew, "we're fighting for our home, our people. Stay sharp and trust in each other." The fleet surged forward, engines roaring. The first volley of enemy fire lit up the sky, streaks of energy cutting through the morning light. Leora's ship shuddered as it absorbed the impact, but the shields held strong. "Return fire!" she ordered. The deck vibrated as their own weapons responded, beams of energy lancing out to meet the foe. Explosions blossomed across the enemy lines, a chaotic ballet of destruction. Amidst the chaos, Jack's voice cut through the din. "Incoming fighters! They're trying to flank us." Leora's mind raced. "Divert shields to the starboard side. Prepare countermeasures." The ship's systems hummed in response, and the crew executed their commands with precision. The fighters' approach was met with a hail of defensive fire, several breaking formation as they struggled to evade. On the bridge, the intensity grew. Each command was crucial, every decision carrying the weight of life and death. Leora and Jack worked in seamless harmony, their bond forged in the fires of conflict. A sudden explosion rocked the ship, alarms blaring. "Hull breach in Section 3!" a crew member shouted. "Seal it off and reroute power!" Leora responded, her voice cutting through the panic. Jack, assessing the situation, realized the enemy had a new tactic. "They're targeting our command centers. They want to decapitate our leadership." Leora's eyes narrowed. "We need to turn this around. Get me a direct line to the fleet." As the connection was established, Leora addressed her forces. "This is Princess Leora. Our enemy seeks to divide and conquer us. But we will stand united. Focus fire on their flagships. Cut off the head, and the body will fall." The fleet rallied, a surge of determination propelling them forward. Coordinated strikes began to tear through the enemy's ranks. The rival factions' ships, once an imposing wall, now faltered under the concentrated assault. Jack monitored the tactical display, his expression grim but hopeful. "We're making progress, but their command ship is still operational. If we don't take it out, they'll regroup." Leora's resolve hardened. "Prepare a strike team. We're going to board their command ship." Jack nodded, respecting her decision. "I'm coming with you." Minutes later, they were aboard a shuttle, cutting through the void toward the enemy flagship. The shuttle docked with a shudder, and the team disembarked into the hostile vessel. The corridors were a labyrinth of danger, enemy soldiers at every turn. Leora led the charge, her movements swift and decisive. Jack covered her flank, his accuracy and tactical prowess keeping them ahead of their pursuers. They reached the command center, its doors a formidable barrier. "Stand back," Jack said, setting charges. The explosion was deafening, the doors blown inward. They stormed the room, taking the enemy command by surprise. The rival faction's leader, a figure cloaked in authority and malice, turned to face them. "You dare to board my ship?" he snarled. Leora's eyes blazed with defiance. "We dare to end this war." The confrontation was fierce, a blur of energy blasts and hand-to-hand combat. Leora and Jack fought with unyielding determination, their synergy impeccable. Finally, with a decisive strike, Leora incapacitated the enemy leader. "Call off your forces," she demanded, her blade at his throat. Realizing his defeat, the leader complied. Across the battlefield, enemy ships began to retreat, the tide of battle turning irrevocably. Back on their own ship, the crew erupted in cheers as the enemy fleet disbanded. Leora and Jack stood together on the bridge, the weight of victory settling in. "We did it," Leora said, her voice a mix of relief and exhaustion. Jack smiled, a rare warmth in his eyes. "Together." As the Zalarian fleet regrouped, the dawn of a new era began. The alliance held strong, forged in the crucible of war and bound by the trust and courage of its leaders. Leora and Jack, united by their trials, looked toward a future of hope and unity for their people.